Alright guys, in this video we are going to talk about your 12A and B notes. If you need to pause, rewind, or stop at any point in time, go right ahead. We are going to move quite a bit in this. You have these notes filled in already in your packet, so I'm just going to mostly talk right through them. Alright, a couple of key events in the Crusades. In the year 1098, Pope Urban II. And in the Pope's speech, he calls for a holy war. He calls all Catholics in Europe to crusade to the Holy Lands to recapture the city of Jerusalem from the Muslims and hold it for the church. Now, the first crusade is going to be successful in capturing Jerusalem and surrounding territories, which is going to lead to the foundation of the Crusader states, which are four feudal states founded after that success. Saladin and his Muslim army are eventually going to recapture Jerusalem in the year 1187, which is going to lead Richard the Lionheart to launch the Third Crusade. The Fourth Crusade never reaches the Holy Land. It instead decides to sack Constantinople. Effects of the Crusades. First off, it's going to weaken the Pope and nobles. The lack of success of the Crusades is going to weaken the feudal system. It's going to lead to the rise of kings and nations. Many of the people who are going on the crusade are not knights and nobles. They're the poor people. They are serfs in our feudal Europe at the time. People whose lives are pretty miserable except the fact that they're alive. They're offered a chance at salvation. They're offered a chance to save their family members, to guarantee their spot in heaven by taking up the crusade, and they leave in droves. The feudal system relies on the labor of these serfs. So without these serfs, the nobles are going to lose power, and they're going to have to start looking for other ways to make the system go. The Pope is also going to lose power because ultimately the Crusades are unsuccessful and will lead to his power hemorrhaging towards the rise of kings and nations. The second thing that's going to happen here is we're going to stimulate trade in the Mediterranean basin in the Middle East. It's going to promote the exchange of goods and ideas. So we have all of these Europeans going to the Middle East and being exposed to Eastern products, things like salt, pepper, ideas like the windmill and the watermill, and they're going to bring these things back to Europe with them after the Crusades, which in turn is going to cause the Europeans to want those goods to come to Europe, which is going to start fueling that trade machine to expand into Europe. The third effect is that we create bitterness between Jews, Christians, and Muslims. The religious intolerance practiced by the Christians in 200 years of war is going to leave a permanent scar in relations between the religions that still carries today. And it's also going to further weaken the Byzantine Empire. The conflict is going to lead to a rise in Turkish power and eventually the fall of the Byzantine Empire. Now the Mongols. Also, during this time period, the Mongol armies are going to invade Russia, China, Southwest Asia, and Muslim states. They have an emphasis on horse warfare and archery that makes them successful. They are known for courage, strength, and their discipline. They're going to conquer an enormous empire, eventually controlling most of Asia throughout the 1200s. Or the 13th century, as some people would refer to it. Their most famous leader at the time is Genghis Khan. And the city of Constantinople is ultimately going to fall to the Ottoman Turks in 1453. This marks the official end of the Byzantine Empire, almost 1,000 years after it was first came into being. The city of Constantinople is then going to be renamed Istanbul, and it becomes the capital of the Ottoman Empire, which will last until the end of World War I when it's broken up. Alright, now, in Europe, as we start to see the fall of church power, we're going to see the rise of nations, and some important things to remember is we have William the Conqueror is going to lead the Norman conquest. He leads a French army across the English Channel and successfully conquers England, with the final battle being the Battle of Hastings. He's the only person in history to successfully invade across the English Channel. English common law traces its roots back to Henry II. King John is going to sign the Magna Carta in the year 1217. It's an early version of the Bill of Rights, guarantees protections to citizens, peasants, and nobles alike. And then we're going to have England participating in what's known as the 100 Years' War against France. And it's a significant war because it's one of our early signs of nationalism. It creates a national identity for England. And then throughout this time period, we're going to have the evolution of Parliament as a democratic body that will advise and eventually supersede the power of the king over time. In France, we're going to have Hugh Capet establishing a united French throne in Paris, and he establishes what is known as the Capetian dynasty. France is on the other end of the 100 Years' War with England, and again it establishes part of their national identity. And Joan of Arc is a leading military and unifying figure for them during the 100 Years' War. In Russia, we are going to have a little bit later into the 1400s now, we're going to have Ivan the Great defeat the Mongols, finally expel them from Moscow, where Ivan is able to centralize power, and he establishes himself in the seat and the chair as the Tsar. And Tsar is essentially their version of king. The Greek Orthodox Church plays a major influence on the developments in Russia. And then lastly, in Spain, we're going to have Ferdinand and Isabella unite the country and expel the Jews and the Moors. Under Ferdinand and Isabella, we're also going to have the Spanish Inquisition, a time period where Jews and Muslims were persecuted and tortured and forced to convert to Catholicism. After Ferdinand and Isabella, Charles V is going to come into the throne, and the Spanish Empire under Charles V will spread to Central and South America and grow massive and extremely wealthy there.